Episode 1: Suburban Struggle. The 1940s foresaw a big change in the world. The Second World War had ended, but a new war was about to get even colder. There was a change in social status for women's rights, and in general, music was changing for the better. Everyone was getting back on their feet. The 1940s will also see a great change in the railways too, as the war had taken its toll and a radical strategy had to be employed in order to get the railways back on their wheels. In the late 40s, the big four railway companies, the London and North Eastern Railway, the Great Western Railway, the London Midland and Scottish Railway, and the Southern Railway, all took part in the famous locomotive exchange trials to see how well locomotives from different parts of the country would perform in different parts of the country. The trials were mostly successful, and ultimately, the Railway Board had come to the decision to unite all the big four railway companies as one whole unit: British Railways. They employed a Mr. Robert Riddles as chief mechanical engineer to help rebuild the railway that was war damaged and neglected. And part of this plan was building a full range of 12 brand new steam locomotives, and this meant all the locomotive workshops were getting busy, starting to build all the new locomotives whilst at the same time rebuilding and reallocating some of the older engines. One of these workshops and locomotive sheds that was a part of this plan was the well-renowned Brighton Sheds. Originally built for the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway in the late 1800s, it later became one of the biggest railway workshops on the Southern Railway in the 1920s and 30s, and now it is building new locomotives for a new generation. Brighton Sheds was right next to the central station, and therefore it was a real hub of activity, with many locomotives coming and going, staying and resting, being coaled and watered. Many engines were allocated to the shed, and many were just long-term visitors. And one of these engines is 222 Squadron. 222 Squadron is a large Battle of Britain class locomotive, but prefers to be called Johnny. He is a Pacific type engine designed by Oliver Bulleid and painted in a lush Brunswick green livery. He is one of the light Pacifics who runs around the south of England pulling fast express trains. Johnny is one of the younger engines at the shed, with a lot of life in him. He was only recently built in 1945, and therefore he is very eager and most of the time rather positive. But he's also an intelligent engine, having vast amounts of general knowledge thanks to his driver, who has a sister who works in television. So therefore Johnny knows a lot about what's going on in the world, and this makes him think he knows more about the world than any of the other engines do. And in his words, the times are changing, and the more you know, the more you'll be able to keep up to speed. But Johnny is going to find out that this is not necessarily the case. It was a warm spring day at Brighton Sheds in the year of 1951, and the engines had now got used to nationalisation. They were very comfortable with the railways now being united as one, as it was not just railway companies that had united, but also various industrial companies are working more closely with British Railways in order to distribute and deliver more goods. And this involves using each other's locomotives. That is why on this day at Brighton, we see a small 040 tank engine named Rafferty, who was just resting in the yards after a hard morning's work of shunting for some of the goods engines. He was just simmering in the shade, personally content, until he noticed something rather surprising, as he spotted a large black 044 tender engine with red and white lining, standing inside the shed, blowing off steam majestically. This surprising sight of a vintage engine turned into curiosity for the little blue tank engine.
Hey, Albert.
Yeah, Rafferty, what's up?
Just a quick question. What's a massive old timer like that doing in our fine shed? He's quite a sight to behold.
Oh yeah, he's a fine sight, isn't he? I don't know his name, but he's come down all the way from Tavistock. I hear he's going to be doing work down here for a while. You could go and introduce yourself, Rafferty. I'm sure an engine like that won't bite, or, bump your buffers or something.
Well, let's get those wheels moving and introduce ourselves then. Or driver Larry, do you think you could move us next to that engine outside the shed? The one with 8 wheels on his tinder.
Why do you want to do that, Raf?
Just wanted to introduce myself to the newcomer.
Oh, okay then. Just give me a moment, mate.
So Rafferty and his crew made their way over to the shed, alongside the new arrival. As he rolled past the little engine into the late morning sun, Rafferty felt a bit shy all of a sudden at the sight of this new face.
Hi, nice day. I'm Rafferty. Hope you don't mind the intrusion.
Not at all, my dear engine. You've made no sudden intrusions whatsoever. In fact, I've been longing to talk to someone ever since I got here. Perhaps not many of the engines here are prolific conversationists.
Oh, don't worry. All the engines here love to chat. Have a laugh after a good joke. I think they'll be surprised when they see you.
Really? And why would they think that, Rafferty? Nice name, by the way.
Well, I mean, you're a T9 class engine, and most other engines wouldn't expect an engine of your type to be so far down from the southwest. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, Mr.
Nicholas. And thank you for asking. And you don't have to call me Mr. Rafferty. Save that sort of address for the Board of Directors of the British Transport Commission. But I absolutely understand, my fellow engine. I'm pretty far from home. Literally.
Yes, Tavistock. That's quite a distance to travel. But I expected the T9s were rather fast engines back in the old days of the London and South Western Railway. But I come from so far up north, I'm not really caught up with my Southern Railway history.
Oh no, you're right on point there, Rafferty. We weren't exactly breaking any records back then. We were fast enough to be called the flagships of our railway, yes. Not literally, of course. But that's how it was in the old days, and a lot has changed. I had to get with the times. How shocking is that?
Well, I'm glad you're here, Nicholas. It'll be nice to have an engine around who's had a few years under his wheels. You could teach the young engines a thing or two and...
Rafferty's sentence was suddenly broken off at the sound of a loud bullet whistle surrounding the shed.
Good morning, everybody. I'm back from Victoria.
Speaking of which, how's it going, Johnny? I take it from your high-pitched voice as you entered the yard that you had a good run.
I did. Thanks for asking, Rafferty. I think that was one of my best runs yet. I think I was running really well, and I think I was reaching up to the speeds of 90 miles per hour. I bet I made British Railways proud, and I bet my passengers had a good time as I was speeding along the line. they must have been thrilled.
I don't think that's a necessity. I expect your passengers just want to get to their destinations on time and safely. Making them thrilled, as you say, is not the best mindset when it comes to running trains.
I'm sorry. Who's this?
Johnny, this is Nicholas. He's going to be working around here for a while.
Oh, I see. Well, nice to meet you, but just 2 things I must ask. First off, what kind of engine are you? You look like something that's come out of an old railway painting they hung up on the station master's office.
I'm a T9 engine. I used to work on the London and South Western Railway from 1899, and eventually came into the Southern Railway when it was all grouped up, so to speak.
Oh, you're a pre-grouping engine.
That's right. I used to be an express engine. Like you, as a matter of fact. But nowadays, I'm just rostered to Suburban work on all the branch lines in the southwest.
I bet you missed the good old days when you could go fast and go flying on the line.
Why, I don't miss it. Well, maybe at first when I was first built. There is a reason my class were nicknamed Greyhounds. But as time goes on and you learn more about the world of the railways, it becomes a matter more of responsibility, reliability, and comfort.
Well, you do make a good point, but that fact was only true like 80 years ago. People weren't exactly in a hurry to get anywhere.
And what exactly are you implying there, young engine?
Whoa, be careful, you two. Nicholas, you seem like a very nice engine. And Johnny, you're smart enough to know you shouldn't go around getting into arguments with the older engines. Or tall, for that matter of fact.
I know, Rafferty, but it seems that old St. Nicholas here doesn't quite understand that the modern day railways are no longer divided, and all united as one.
I am fully aware of that, young Johnny. I wasn't built yesterday.
Yes, that is correct. You were built in the 1800s when the greatest thrill was travelling through the remote countryside to a distant town or city behind a massive machine with 4 massive wheels making its way to its destination. But today is a different story. The greatest thrill that men and women can experience is to fly through the sky in massive machines with propellers. But their greatest thrill is also our greatest threat, with massive unions threatening war once again and market air travel becoming more and more competitive. The railway has to become competitive as well. So that means being faster, trying to catch the eye of our customers.
Horse-drawn carts face the exact same thing about the steam locomotive as you do about aeroplanes. But that is no excuse to give passengers a certain kind of experience just to get their attention. All passengers want to do is to get to their destinations, and that is the exact same for goods. And since you are part mixed traffic, you should understand that too.
I am not mixed traffic.
And I am not stuck in my ways, which, my dear engine, is exactly what you are trying to imply. I could think of a number of reasons why I should retaliate against your rudeness just now, but thankfully I'm more civilized than that. And I think this introduction has gone the completely wrong direction.
I think so too. I'm just so, I don't want to cause any offence. But if you don't change your ways and viewpoints in the world, it's gonna bite you on the buffers.
And with that, Johnny blew a large cloud of steam and rolled into the shed. Nicholas looked exhausted. Rafferty felt bad.
I'm sorry about his attitude, Nicholas. I mean, I've only known him for about 5 years now, and he's usually never like this with the other engines. I think sometimes he thinks he's a bit of a knowledge box, and I think you might have a thing or two for pre-grouping engines.
No, that's alright, Rafferty. I've been around long enough to see far worse engines than Johnny, and those types of engines usually don't stay around for that long. But it looks like Johnny isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But he seems like a clever sort of engine to have an opinion like that. So that is why I am content that his comeuppance will bite him in the buffers eventually. Don't you worry yourself, Rafferty. His attitude will change towards me.
Oh, I really hope his attitude does change.
But what Rafferty didn't realise was that Johnny and Nicholas would both get their comeuppance as a result of their own opinions. And for Nicholas especially, it was to happen sooner rather than later.